Welcome to Threads of Grace. We are in episode number 3, and this episode is titled When Life Disrupts, Finding Strength Beyond Survival. And I am joined by an incredible human whom I have admired over many years. I'm really excited for you to join us in this episode, sharing your life's journey, and hopefully that the listeners will really take some insights and nuggets from our conversation and apply in their day-to-day life. So my guest today is none other than, drum rolls, Richard Wright. Welcome, Richard.
Bex, thank you so much. What a fantastic introduction. Thank you so much for having me, and what an honor. And how amazing that I get to be one of the first guests on what I think is going to become an amazing podcast. And I love what you're doing, and what an absolute privilege for me to be a part of that. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I look forward to our conversation, but also interacting with you over and beyond this discussion. We have met briefly in 2018. I think we did meet in person during the World Championship, the Ironman 70.3 World Championships. But we
Correct.
didn't spend one-on-one time. I think you were busy giving talks and you are all over the place. And I happened to be in one of the in that period. I was at that time working at the municipality as the host for the World Championships. But then I know about you. I know about your work, of your work, and my husband Peter in particular is your fellow triathlete,
Yep.
coached by Reynard and Natalie Tissink. You
Correct.
both are athletes of Team Tissink. Big out to the coaches.
Yeah.
So I
Absolutely.
know of you a lot because something profound that he tells me about you, because he's really fond of you. He says, if there's anybody out there that does not believe in God, needs to listen to Richard. And it has always drawn curiosity because he's not said it once, not twice. He says it a lot. So clearly that's how much of an impact you have in his life. But secondly, I think it was in April this year during the Ironman African Championships. It was April or end of March, right?
End of
Where
March.
you were racing neck to neck with Paul Wolf.
Yes.
And and by the way, Paul Wolf is my family. So I had the app on, and
Yeah.
during the run, the two of you are going neck to neck. And I was at the finish line, we were waiting, and there you came through. And what an incredible race that you guys had. So that's as much as I have interacted, at least with you on that level.
It's amazing. So that 2018 was a very tough time for me. The World Champs. I was worried that I was going to come last in my age group. I actually landed up in the medical tent after that race. It was a tough place. I was in a treatment at that time, and so I'm sorry if I wasn't in a great space. And then a lot of people were looking for interviews and things and stories, and
Mm.
so it was one of those where you actually want to go and crawl up into a private space and not speak to anybody. Um, but I do remember meeting you, and Peter is an absolutely amazing human. I think the two of you are a phenomenal couple. And I remember at that time actually even saying to him, wow, Pete, you did good. You know, Bex, you really did good. So cool that's come full circle. And then that race with Paul, yeah, he was the person I was most worried about, and hopefully we get into that story just now. But I knew getting off the bike that I had 14 minutes lead on him, and I know that he runs faster than me. He's 1 year older, but it feels like he's 30 years younger. The man can run, and I was walking because I was in a world of pain, and I knew I was watching and tracking on my watch every single lap, so I knew how much time I could give him, and how much I could walk, and how much I could. And on the last lap, I remember turning at the top of Admiralty, and I knew he
Yeah.
was coming up the hill and I was going to go down the hill. And I thought, Richard, you need to show no pain. You need to run as fast as you can down this hill, because he's got to have this feeling that you
Mm.
are feeling amazing and he's never going to catch you in the 3Ks left. Um, and the coaches screaming at me. It was it was quite a moment. Big respect to Paul.
No,
He's a good human being
it
and a
was
great.
a moment, and we celebrate that moment because you gave us a show, the two of you. Yeah. So, for the sake of others, perhaps who haven't interacted with you or with your work, please allow me to introduce you. I'm going to read verbatim your profile because one, it's well written, the one in your website, but it
I
says
hope
a
it's
lot
current.
about. I hope so, but still, nonetheless, it's still
Perfect.
you, right?
Yes.
It says overcoming a rare terminal brain cancer once is one thing. Beating it 4 times is remarkable, but completing 5 full Ironman events amongst many other races while still fighting the cancer is extraordinary. Richard is a radical and rebellious optimist. I like that part. An expert on the power of the mind and the power of purpose. He is a human behavior specialist who is fanatical about enriching lives and organizations with his insights, wit, practical tool sets, stories, and with his huge dynamic energy. And we can already feel that. An initiator of lasting and transformative change, Richard is exactly what you need in a world of constant disruption and challenges. Richard is a husband, father, keynote speaker, facilitator, life coach, sales trainer. I'm interested in that.
Hmm.
And an MC. He's also an endurance athlete, bonsai expert. Maybe I need a tip or two because mine is dying. Oops. The best-selling author of The Power of Purpose. Just reading your CV, I'm incredibly inspired. I'm excited to really get to know or tap into that wealth of knowledge. I know you've written a book. I'm yet to get a hard copy of the book, but I know of the book. And of course, for our listeners to just get to know you a little bit better. To get us started, I have prepared a little game for me and you. I'll ask you the question. So it's just lighthearted, quick way for us to know each other better. I'll throw out 2 choices and you just pick the one that feels most like you. No
Perfect.
rules, nothing
Perfect.
serious. No
I like.
overthinking and say whatever comes first in mind. Okay, are we ready?
Yes. Ready.
Okay. Swim start adrenaline or finish line relief?
Oh. Phew. Wow. I'm swim start adrenaline.
Why?
Power of possibility. You don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen. Everything is on the table. You could win, you could lose, you could do anything. It's opportunity, possibility, love. At the finish line, you can
Great.
do nothing. It's gone.
Okay. Long solo ride or group run with friends?
Oh, long solo ride.
Why?
I'm an ambivert. I'm introverted. Being around people costs me energy. Um, and that solo training space is my church. That's my time for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's my thinking time. It's my processing time, and that's endurance. And the better you can handle those alone times when you're hurting and you've still got a long way to go and you're on your own, the more likely you are to do well in an Ironman triathlon. It's my time.
I say the same for a run, for my case.
Mm, mm,
People would
mm.
say, I saw you along the road, I hooted, I said hello, you didn't respond. I'm like, I'm in my whole world. I'm saying my prayers, meeting my
Yeah,
demons. I'm making life decisions in that run. So I fully
correct.
understand what you mean. Are
Mm.
you a fun parent or this disciplinarian?
Sure, that's a very tough one. Both, but I would go with more fun.
Okay. So you give them leeway here and there.
So the boundaries, no, there are definite boundaries, but there is space within the boundaries. Um, and that's the
Absolutely.
important part for me. When we know the boundaries are, then we can actually have fun within them.
Mm. Awesome. Movie night or outdoor adventure? You have
Moving
two
on.
girls.
Yeah, moving on.
I was,
Moving
I
on.
was about to say, because I know my girls love
Yeah.
Push harder or pace yourself?
I think push harder is pace yourself, but um, push harder.
You're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I'm gonna say push harder though, because if at some point in time you can pace yourself as much as you like, but at some point in time you're going to have to break through a barrier, and at that point you've got to push harder. So for me, that's more important. The pacing comes naturally and normally, but pushing harder through the pain and through the disruption, that's the important part if you want to get to the other side.
For example, in that Ironman African Champs race, I'm sure you paced yourself through the race, but came to that last
Yes.
finish when you knew it was either you or Paul.
Correct. No, absolutely correct. And I came past Natalie and Ran Artistic the last time, and they were screaming at me. In fact, they were. I joke and say that they were abusive. And they were saying, Richard, chemotherapy is nothing compared to chemo, and if you don't go under 4 minutes 44 per k for the last 2.5 Ks, you are not going to win your age group. And you're like, are you mad? I haven't been running under 5 Ks for the last 10 Ks. No, 5 minutes a K. But you find it, you find it. And that's the pushing through. It's the most important part of getting to your finish line, whatever that finish line is for you. Definitely.
Mm, fantastic. Inner grit, this is a word you love, or supportive community?
Integrate.
Why?
I'm a bit of a loner. In fact, I think I'm quite reclusive. Um, and I rely on myself. My mom used to say when I was a kid that I was stubbornly independent. Oh, so I think that's also part of the success is knowing the inner grit, believing in myself, believing in my ability to overcome. The community is amazing, but there are times when I've actually pushed the community away.
I can relate because I went to boarding school all my life. Like I'm
Oh,
talking about primary school, all
yeah,
the way till the end, and you learn to really be independent and to dig deep. As much as you, yeah, as much as you need the community and you can tap into that, but for you even to give into the community, you really need to be sure
yeah.
of yourself and be able to contribute there.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the slides I put up in some of the talks I do is it's a slide with a big word "me" in the middle, and then all the words, all the team of people that I built around me, my community, my tribe. In 8 years of beating brain cancer, and every single one of them is an expert. Every single one of them is brilliant at what they do. My mother's there; she's an expert at being my mother. She's the only one. But if I don't believe and if I don't do the things that I need to do, it doesn't matter how good my team is. So that's the weight of responsibility that, um, in that way, nobody's coming to save me. Nobody's going to put my feet in front of the other and an Iron Man. Nobody's going to do what I need to do to overcome cancer. So that's the role of me within that community. And that to me is more important than the community.
Mm-hmm. Great. Plan everything or go with the flow.
We'll go with the flow. Easy one. Fly by the
Okay,
seat of your
that's
pants.
I'm the opposite completely.
I know.
I want to
I know. I saw your notes for this podcast. I'm like, oh my goodness, we are opposites. Yeah. I admire you. I
I
admire you
mean,
because I don't have that ability.
my profession, the underlying part is project management. So
There we
scope,
go.
time, and
Yep.
resources is quite key. Even though this morning I wasn't when I called you panicking. But yeah, interesting. Quiet solitude or social energy?
Quiet solitude.
Mm, the way you dig deep.
Correct. And when I speak,
Mm.
I give massive energy, but then I just need to disappear, and often I'll sleep for the rest of the afternoon. It costs me so much energy. I get back. I always step off a stage with more energy than I came with because I feed off the audience and the people. But it just costs me so much that I need the solitude to be able to put myself back together again.
Mm. This confuses me a bit, and I'm still figuring it out because when I'm alone, for example, in the house, I want
Mm.
it quiet. I don't want music, nothing.
Mm.
Quiet. But I love people as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So I also love people, but only at certain times and only for a certain length of time. You know? Yeah.
yeah. So last but not least, guess what the question would be? Grace or grit?
Very good question. I would automatically go for grace, but I know that what is lacking is, I mean, I'd automatically go for grit, but what I know is lacking is the grace. And I'm not good with grace with myself even. I'm very hard on
Mm,
myself. I'm my own worst critic. I'm very, very self-critical and lack self-confidence in many ways. And I know I need that grace. And I know I need grace from outside as well. And I'm not good at that. So one of the reasons I actually accepted this podcast with open arms is I'm pretty sure I'm going to be challenged, and I love that. So thank you. Mm.
I'm glad. I'm glad you can pick on grace because we need that. I need that.
Mm. Oh,
Strangers need that. And it's something if we give each other and ourselves, I think we're just going to be a better
yeah.
community, country, whatever.
But but for me, it's easy to give grace to other people, easy, and I'm good
Mm,
at that,
mm,
but not to
mm,
give it to myself.
mm. Fantastic. That was fun. And this just
Right?
touches the surface, but we get to understand a little bit of who Richard is. And of course, through Endurance Athlete, we've seen your strength and courage. I know at this juncture in your life, there's disruption.
Mm. Mm.
And
Okay.
of course, we stand with you in this disruption and we don't want to give it power. I know you'll overcome. But what I want to ask you is take us back to the moment when your journey with disruption truly began.
Mm. Um, so what's quite interesting is there was a lot of disruption before cancer even came into my life. At that point in time, I'd been through a divorce, and there's no such thing as a comfortable, happy divorce, financially stable divorce. It was really hectic. In times when I'd made a big move, I'd moved down to Port Elizabeth from Johannesburg. Our marriage was in tatters. We were trying to put things together. Moved to a really bad market. I was in property. Things were tough. So landed up in a world of debt, divorced. My ex-wife wanted to move back to Johannesburg with my two little girls who really are my purpose, my why, my everything. And that was a really tough time of coming up to Johannesburg once every 4 to 5 weeks just to see them. I was working then. Life changed from a work point of view, and I was kind of living out of a suitcase, and so a lot of disruption at that time. And I was really struggling. Ironman was my thing. Ironman was that place that I went. So disruption was quite a big theme at that time. So there I'm divorced, only seeing my girls sort of once a month or so, financial ruin, and trying to find myself again. And I found myself again in Ironman. It became this thing that I knew I was really good at. Um, I had won the age group race at Ironman South Africa twice. I was right at the top, 16th overall in the race and beating most of the pro field. And that's where I found my grit, that resilience, that ability to get back up again. And towards the end of 2015, I recognized the symptoms of a pituitary tumor that I'd been diagnosed with in 2004. But the symptoms were way worse than they'd ever been. I went to go and see my neurosurgeon. We did an MRI, and we found out that the tumor had grown substantially. And that was the first time in my life that I heard the words brain cancer and Richard Wright in the same sentence. But yeah, I'm an Ironman athlete, bulletproof. It can't be my life. In fact, I was the guy so bulletproof when going through financial turmoil with the divorce. I canceled my life insurance. I'm titanium. Who needs life insurance when you're this bulletproof? And so it was a massive shock for me, and I was determined that it couldn't be my life. This could not be the story of my life. I did what we would all do. I went to Dr. Google to try and Google the symptoms and trying to figure out what this is. And Dr. Google always tells us it's the worst case scenario. In fact, most times, Dr. Google says, "Hey, you've got death. That's what you've got. You've got death." And in this instance, it pretty much was that. It's one of the rarest forms of cancer on the planet. One of the most aggressive. There's no treatment for it. There's very little known about it. It's just freaky rare. But even that made me even more determined this can't be my life. And it's not as simple as a blood test because of the blood-brain barrier. In fact, brain cancers are very difficult to diagnose and determine, and you can't just do a biopsy because it's a brain operation cutting through the skull. So I was determined I was going to go and do this Ironman, and I wasn't able to do much training because of what I was suffering. But I got to that finish line, 2016, and it was just this victory and triumph of if I can do this thing, I've done a brain cancer. And I was booked in with my neurosurgeon that Friday after the race for a lumbar puncture. And he was really worried. In fact, he'd even asked me to bring an overnight bag because he was so worried. He'd done research. He'd never seen it before. He consulted a couple of fellows overseas, and they all said, it's highly doubted. He doesn't fit the demographic. He's just done an Ironman. But if he has one chance of survival, if he does have it, you need to go and take it out as soon as possible. So my neurosurgeon had called in a favor from a friend at a lab. They were going to try and process the results as quickly as possible, a hugely reduced time frame. And my surgeon asked me to bring an overnight bag and to wait for results. And he'd booked a theater for just in case. I was so determined this wasn't me that I didn't even tell my parents that I'd gone in for this procedure. Just this isn't my life. So imagine then when the results came back and I was wheeled into theater. All I wanted to know is, did you get this thing out of my head? And the surgeon was quite optimistic that he had got it all. He'd even managed to save quite a lot of the pituitary. It was a tumor on the pituitary, secreting prolactin, and he said, you're probably going to be in hormone replacement therapy for the rest of your life. You're permanent menopause. But it didn't matter. I picked menopause over brain cancer, right? Although now, having gone through perimenopause and menopause with my wife, Deborah, I'm not so sure about that. It's quite tough. Wow. What women have to go through, it's rough. 6 weeks after the operation, I had to start radiation therapy, and that was kind of just to make sure that it all gone. An MRI about 12 days into the radiation, I was called in after that for the results, and that was the first time somebody looked me in my eyes and told me that my time on this planet has a finite end date. And I'll never forget his words. By my best guess, you have 6 months to live. So by my best guess, you have 6 months to live. And I remember in that moment just really struggling with the news and trying to process what I heard. And did I hear that? And when is my checkout time? And a blood drain from my face, and I got all sweaty, and the color, just everything. My stomach flipped over, and I got frustrated with myself because I couldn't remember the date. And it was, Richard, you made the appointment. You hear, what is the date? How can you not know what the date is? And finally, I realized what the date is, and I did the mental arithmetic, and I realized that my checkout time was the 4th of December that year. And then my next thought was, I probably won't see another Christmas. And my next thought was, um, of my two little girls waking up on Christmas morning without their dad. And then I felt this vitriolic boiling rage just coming out of me. And it was aimed at the only other person in the room. I know he didn't give me cancer. It wasn't his fault. But how dare you? How dare you think that you can tell me how I'm going to respond? Do you know who I am? Do you know what I'm capable of? Do you know what I've done in my life? Are the people that you're comparing me to, are they also Ironman athletes? Are they endurance athletes? You've never seen this form of cancer before, yet you think you can tell me how I'm going to respond? And it's impossible in that environment not to feel like you are a legitimate victim of disruption that's come into your life. Turn that upside down, and in that disruption, um, you're stuck in this place where I just want to go back. I just want to go back to my life before this disruption entered it, and I'm fearful of what is coming next. What is the future going to look like? How am I going to handle this disruption? What is my life going to look like? And because you get trapped in that space of I just want to go back to before, and I'm so scared of what's coming, it's almost impossible for you to deal with the disruption. How do you deal with the present moment and figure out how to move forward? And so, yeah, that was the first time, and my life turned upside down. And every single one of us, every single person listening, can think of a time in your life where you were in exactly that place. And how do we deal when life disrupts?
Wow. I cannot even begin to fathom the extent of that disruption. I mean, you've talked about it beginning prior to the diagnosis, and I can I can imagine you trying to relate this, the kids already adjusting to the divorce or trying to make sense of the divorce. You are trying to put yourself together. And then boom, this diagnosis. I can imagine the weight of that kind of disruption. But how do you even begin to process with people like family? You've mentioned you are even scared of telling your parents. Where do you start? How do you
Mhm.
process it? And I think many people just get stuck in that process of it's just overwhelming. I have a date. For you, you have a date, 4th December. I cannot even start imagining what that felt.
Mm. So there's a bewildering, overwhelming um, lost feeling. I think lost is about the best. Is you just you feel like everything's been wiped out from underneath you, and all this security and stability is now gone. And one of the things that I do want to add in here before I answer the question is that disruption, any disruption comes with loss. It doesn't matter what that is. Things are disrupted, and what was is gone. And that loss is something we're not very good at identifying and dealing with. And loss, any loss, comes with grief. And I don't think we handle grief well. And we understand that grief is the loss of a person, loss of a loved one, loss of a relationship. But I don't think we equate grief with, I've just matriculated and it's the grief and the loss of being at the school and the environment, and everything that I knew for 12 years is now gone. And I'm now moving on. The loss of being a teenager, moving into your 20s. There are so many things we leave behind and lose, and we don't ever give ourselves an opportunity to grieve. And part of that grief, obviously, is the anger. So there was lots of anger, and I didn't equate this thing with grief, this loss. But what I did know is that my girls deserve to be kids, and that I did not want to tell them about cancer. So they knew about the tumor, they knew about the brain operation, obviously. They knew about the radiation and the treatment, but I certainly did not want them to know about cancer. And our job as parents is to try and protect our kids as much as possible. And I guess a good part of that was the stepping up and being that dad, where my ex-wife had the girls 1 week and I had them 1 week. And the weeks when I had them were the best weeks because I had to somehow just dig deep and pretend that everything was okay. It meant I didn't have a choice. Well, actually, when I say that, because we're so good to say I didn't have a choice, you do have a choice. You've got a choice for the opposite. I made the choice to step up. But it also meant in the weeks when I didn't have the girls, I could fall apart. And that's when I literally I avoided my community. If people wanted to bring me things, meals, whatever, in fact, they used to get hold of my housekeeper and find her number and figure out when she was at home and come around when she was there, because I just disappeared. So I've said two things there. The first is that dealing with disruption, being overwhelmed, it's okay to disappear. It's okay to whatever comes naturally to you, whatever you feel is the best for you at that time, it's okay. You don't have to be strong all the time. In fact, you shouldn't be strong all the time, because that's part of processing and dealing. Cry, scream, whatever comes naturally, allow yourself the space and the grace to be able to express whatever it is that you're feeling in that moment. And that's extremely, extremely important. And then the second is find that place, find that thing, find whatever it is that enables you to step up and find that strength, resilience, grit within yourself. And for me, it was my girls. And at that time, I couldn't afford to die, which sounds really weird, Bex, but I couldn't. Remember, I'd canceled my life insurance. I hadn't ever reinstated it again. And although I was getting my head above the debt and things were okay, I certainly was not in a position to leave my girls in any place where I was comfortable. And as the primary breadwinner and the person who is going to be their financial support, there wasn't even money there to put them through most of tertiary education. So that became my why. That became my purpose. I cannot afford to die. I cannot allow this to happen. I will do whatever I possibly need to do to beat brain cancer because my girls need their dad. So what is that place for you, that locus of control? And I guess it's the mix between understanding that what are the things I can control, that's where I need to focus, and what are the things that are out of my control, I need to let that stuff go. And the less time I focus on the stuff I cannot control, and the more I focus on the things that I can control, the more likely I am to get to the other side of that disruption.
And that's a very strong motivation, especially in the context of family. For those of us who've been blessed with kids, I know we live for them. That's why we wake up, but there's also life as a whole with the broader community, with parents, with your friends. You feel like the need to complete things on this earth, for example. You've touched on resilience, a subject we are both passionate about, by the way. Um, and I've written about resilience in the context of cities or urban development. How can cities restore services to people after shocks and stresses or catastrophe happen? But I want us to touch about resilience from a human perspective in which you have lived it. Maybe just help our listeners understand what resilience is in that context, and how can they tap into that? Do they even know they have that within them? And if it is, how can they identify?
Oh, that's a really great question, Bex. Thank you. And I just learned something about you as well. That sounds like a very interesting field. Um, so I'm going to tell you what resilience isn't first, because it's what I thought resilience was. I became a cancer warrior. All of my social media posts ended with hashtag cancer warrior. Um, it was I was going to take the fight to cancer. I was on two different types of chemotherapy because there isn't treatment for pituitary cancer. I was going through radiation therapy. I was on a keto diet. I was absolutely obsessive with everything I put in my body. I was going through ozone treatment, hyperbaric chamber treatment, 4 different types of cannabis oil. There's nothing I wouldn't try. And everything in my life became about beating cancer. And that isn't resilience. And the reason for that is because the more we focus on the obstacles, the more we focus on the thing that is in between us and getting to the other side of where we're at, the more we focus on the things that are preventing us from getting to where we want to be, our finish lines, whatever that is for us, where we want to be, how we want our life to change better, the more we become a victim of those things. And we become an unwitting victim because we think we're doing the opposite. We think we're fighting. We think we're overcoming. We think we are heading off against this thing. But that isn't true. And I only have to look at an Ironman if I'm on the bicycle of a 180 kilometer segment of an Ironman, and I feel that I'm pulling over the hamstring pull, a bit of a strain, and if the more I focus on that hamstring strain, and the more I focus on changing position and doing things, and the more prevalent that hamstring strain becomes, the more whatever we focus on, we will get more of. I need to focus on the things I can control, and I can't control the hamstring. I can control other things. I can control relaxing. I can control thinking about other things. I can control about pedal stroke, and I need to again focus on the things I can control, and that is resilience. So it's learning to identify what it is that I can do something about. And we don't have time now to go into the story, unfortunately, but in that last week of radiation, my eldest daughter, McKinnon, who was 10 at the time, delivered me one of the most poignant life lessons I've ever had. I was really struggling, and she asked me, she said, "Chef, Daddy, are you okay?" And I said, I am. I know I had to do something for her, a project for school, and there was silence for a little bit. I said, I'll never let you down. We will get this thing done." And no, I'm not feeling great. Silence for a bit, and she said, "Daddy, nobody said it would be easy." And I was astounded. It's like, where did that come from? You're 10. Who told you that? I've never said that to you before. Did your mom tell you that? Did a teacher? Did you read it? Where did it come from? And she got apologetic as if she'd said something wrong. And she said, "Dad, I'm really sorry, but I don't know what else to say." That is exactly what I needed to hear. Um, is that, hey, Richard, nobody ever said that life was going to be easy. Nobody ever said that your journey, your trajectory, that it's going to be linear and easy. And hey, um, carry on the way you're carrying on now, and you're not going to get to the other side of cancer. Your life has become cancer. And the very next day, I decided I needed to change my thinking. And this is where resilience comes in. I decided to enter Ironman South Africa, which was 4 months after that time, after my checkout time. I needed to aim at something that was on the other side of my cancer prognosis. I needed to aim at something that everybody in my life told me was impossible, but I was aiming at something that wasn't cancer. I was aiming at something I was good at, this thing that made me feel that I was powerful and I could do things and I could overcome. And that is resilience, focusing on something other than this place, or focusing on something that can help you to get to the other side rather than focusing on where you're at and what you're going through and trying to fight that thing. And so I realized that um, my identity had become cancer. And I wanted my identity to become an Ironman athlete again. If I could just leave my front door and walk around the block, I was not acting and thinking like a cancer victim. I was acting like an Ironman athlete. Didn't matter how slow, didn't matter how little. I was aiming at a finish line that wasn't cancer. I was thinking of something that wasn't cancer. And to me, it became this thing that if I can get to the finish line of a full Ironman, I can beat brain cancer. If I can get to the finish line of a full Ironman, I can show my 2 little girls my my purpose, my why, my reason that their dad is going to be okay. I need to give them this thing that no matter how my dad is struggling, if he could do that thing, he's going to be okay. And that was resilience for me.
Interesting that you're raising your point of entry into endurance was at your weakest. Yet when we see an Ironman or any other event, an endurance athlete, um, going through this, be it comrades, you're doing your 90 kms, cycling events, whatever it is, we see strength.
Mm,
But
mm.
the contrast of strength and weakness and vulnerability in that, is something really to marvel about. Maybe you can also let our listeners in on how do you balance those strength, weakness, and vulnerability? Because to some who don't know your story, seeing you at the finish line is like, wow, Richard, amazing. I wish I could. This is a normal person, no diagnosis, and the assumption is you're 100%. They don't know the demons you're fighting in that run. So maybe you can just give us that balance.
Okay, thank you. That's a good point. So there's quite a lot you said there, and I'm going to try and cover all of it. I'm going to start where you mentioned just now. I'm ignoring the traffic and the people around me because I'm fighting my inner demons. Every single one of us who's out there running is fighting inner demons. It doesn't matter what pace. It doesn't matter. We could be walking. We could, whenever you're struggling to overcome something, to push further, faster, to do more, to go, whatever it is, you're fighting an inner demon because there's that thing inside of you that says, just stop, Bex. Just stop. This is painful. This is uncomfortable. You're out of breath. This is sore. Just stop. And by the way, you're only doing 5Ks today, and a Comrades Marathon is 90. Like, how's this even helping? Just stop. There's no point. And that voice is in all of us. And the other thing I want to say as a departure point is you mentioned that I'm speaking to people who don't have that diagnosis. Well, I disagree because every single one of us has a diagnosis. Every single one of us has, whether it's a self-diagnosis or something we don't like about ourselves, whether it's something we're trying to change about ourselves, we are diagnosing ourselves with that thing, right? And that's super important. That diagnosis very often prevents us from getting to where we want to get to. So that year with Ironman, the first year, I was the story of Ironman, and I had a super sport crew following me around for the whole race, and I had nowhere to hide. It was hectic. Um, I got to the finish line, and the cameras were still there, and my girls, I just burst into tears because my girls had special permission to be waiting at the finish line to put the medal around my neck, and I just saw them as my reason, my why, and I just burst into tears, right? Ironman, the slogan of Ironman is anything is possible. And I really do believe that it is possible because it's our innate ability. There is nothing special about me. I'm not unique. I'm not superhuman. I'm not born with anything that anybody else doesn't have. Um, it's when you want something badly enough and when your reason for doing this thing is big enough, you will overcome whatever it is. I had somebody reach out a while back after a talk of mine, and she said to me, "Hey, you'll be so proud of me. I've started doing some park runs and walk running, and I've decided that I want to do a half Ironman." Um, and she said, "But I really worry because I'm worried that I don't have a good enough reason to do it. And I'm worried that if I don't have a good enough reason to do it, I'm going to stop." So I said, that's a very valid point you're making. And that is critical, absolutely critical. But that's the same as executing on anything in our lives. It all starts with your why. Why are you wanting to build what you want to build? Why do you want to position yourself in the marketplace? Why do you want to start this career? Why are you doing this thing? And then it's the belief. The second step is the belief that I can, the belief that it is possible. Then it's accountability, and then to whoever you want to be accountable or hold yourself accountable to, and then it is the discipline to get the thing done, right? And that's the same as anything in your life, and it is also the same as doing park runs, chasing a finish line. And she told me, I said, well, what is that? Tell me what it is. She asked if, maybe I need some coaching with you, personal coaching. I said, well, just very briefly, why are you doing this thing? She said, I don't have this big thing that it's a charity or trying to overcome what I want to feel better about myself. I want my family to look at me and feel proud. I want to be able to put this thing out there and my friends say, wow, well done. We didn't think you would do that. And you're amazing. She said, but that's all about me. I said, that's totally okay because that's grace. It's the grace to believe that you can do things you didn't think were possible. It's the grace to chase finish lines that are going to mean something to you because if you do that, it's going to somehow make you feel that you're stronger, more powerful, better. It's about growth. It's about becoming. What a fantastic thing. So I want you to put that into a feeling. And I want you to think about how you will feel when you get to your finish line, having accomplished what you set out to accomplish. And when you are struggling in a 5K run, I want you to just think about how you will feel when you get to your finish line, what that feeling will be like, how it's going to make you see yourself, how you're going to feel about yourself. So a week later, she came back and she said, you cannot believe how that has changed everything for me. Essentially what I'm saying is that that space of vulnerability, weakness, and strength comes from the daring to believe, acknowledging that I'm weak, acknowledging that I just need to start somewhere. Um, and literally, if I can, as I said just now, if I can leave my front door and walk around the block, I'm not completing an Ironman. You're never going to complete an Ironman before completing an Ironman in training. You'll never do that. You very seldom even run a marathon before doing an Ironman. You just don't do that distance. So it's the trusting that these little things that I do, where I feel weak and I feel vulnerable and I feel insecure and I feel like, how I've only just done this thing. How am I going to do that thing? If I do enough of those things, and if I'm consistent and I'm building towards something, I will accomplish that thing. Um, we don't have to do these massive things on the journey towards that finish line. It's enough to do these little things.
Mm.
And then the last thing there, every single person who's running to the finish line of a comrades, every single person who's in that Ironman is overcoming their own demons. They are all doing it for a reason, and they're all overcoming something in their heads. Every single one of them. Every single one of them is the hard part. Isn't the race? That's not it. The comrades, the Ironman, the 10K, the park run, the actual event is not the hard part. The hard part is getting up on a day where you're feeling weak and you're feeling like you just want to sleep some more. And you're feeling like this. Actually, I don't feel like I'm making any progress. I don't feel like I'm getting faster. I don't feel like I'm losing weight. I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. And saying, I just need to do this thing, just this next thing. That is hard. And if you don't do that, you'll never get your finish line. So there's that pushing through again, as I mentioned earlier, as opposed to pacing yourself.
Yes, and that's where you build strength also,
Correct. Correct.
because as much as you're entering in weakness and whatever it is, the demons are propelling you, or you focus a lot on the purpose of your why, which is something I also truly advocate for, particularly using sport. Others do drugs, others use alcohol, but we found a great utility in using sport as a way to deal with disruptions, as a way to overcome, as a way to, to give you meaning in life and so forth. And particularly for my case, with a group of women, we started an initiative where we bring women into triathlon. And a lot of those women that I've encountered, when we listen to their stories and you hear, some of them never disclosed this at the beginning. And they said, the reason why I joined the group is my brother drowned in that same ocean that we went into,
Wow.
and I needed to overcome that. Or I'm just an elderly lady that I want to be able to swim with my kids. I want to be able to ride with, my children and not feel left out. I personally normally say, I want to be able to jump off the boat. You know, when I could not swim myself. When you go on vacation and you see it in the movies, and
Yes.
you want to jump off the boat and come back up and not drown.
Oh,
So
correct.
I'm really, really appreciative of you emphasizing the purpose of the why, but ultimately building strength, into this. For somebody who's going through disruption, whatever the circumstance is, what would you advise such a person in terms of the steps to take? I know it's easier said than done. I know it's very hard for somebody who's amidst their storm and to find strength or to dig deep. Or what would you advise this person? Where do they start? How do I even begin this journey?
Okay, so another great question, and well done. These you ask you're just cracking them out here. All these good questions. Just goes to show preparation is everything, right? So well done. Love that question. Um, so I'm going to start by just going back slightly to the strength is in the training and overcoming those moments, and we do hard things because it enables us to do harder things. So one of the first places to go is to look back, and it sounds counterintuitive. Something's disrupted my life. Why would I look back? But it's what you look back on that is so important. And I think that was well, I don't think I know. It was a critical part for me in overcoming is the fact that I was an Ironman athlete before I got cancer. I was an endurance athlete before I got cancer. And that was a real blessing because I know my body intimately. I'm good at pushing through. I'm good at enduring things. I'm good at gritting. I learned how to do that in all those years of endurance sport. Um, but that might have been sport for me, but there's more. I learned how to overcome being teased at school. I learned how to overcome being bullied at school. I learned how to overcome feeling unloved in my home. I learned to overcome feeling insecure and not good enough and unworthy. I learned how to overcome um, starting things late in life and having to catch up and just never feeling like I was somehow good enough. I learned how to overcome feeling shy and insecure and not wanting to stand in front of people. All of those things I overcame have given me strength. And funny enough, when something disrupts our life, we are terrible at looking back and thinking, I have 100% success rate of surviving every single thing I've ever been through. Why can't I tap into that? Instead of looking forward at this thing that has disrupted my life and thinking, how on earth am I going to get through that? Because how many other times have you been in this place where things have been disrupted and look at you. You're a magnificent survivor of every single thing you've been through. So that's the first place to start is just reality check. Hello, are you breathing? Yes. Pinch yourself. Can you feel that? Is it sore? Yes. Hello, you've survived everything that life has thrown at you. Like just build on that. And then the next place is reach out. And I think that is absolutely essential. Is there's the community. Is chances are you are unable, ill-equipped to handle this thing on your own, um, the best way possible, because it's too close to you. It's too raw. It's too emotional. You're emotionally involved with this thing. It's their feelings and you're distraught. It's beaten you. You're depressed. You're feeling down. One of the best things that you can do is to reach out to somebody that you can trust with your situation and even just talk. And the incredible thing about speaking is that when we speak, we're hearing ourselves. And when we share things, when we vent, and men are particularly bad at this, we're not good at venting. Um, and we're not good at allowing the women in our lives to vent. We listen to the women in our lives and we just want to solve it. We just want to fix it. It's like, hey, why are you moaning about this thing? Why are you whining about this thing? Let me tell you how to fix it. And then the fight started. She didn't want me to fix it. She didn't want me to tell her what to do, what not to do. She just wanted to feel heard. And that's part of the process of overcoming. And whether it's journaling, and there you'll never write without reading it back to yourself, or whether it's speaking, you're hearing yourself. And it's that incredible, our brains are so powerful. And it's just allowing your brain to feel heard. I've got this out there. And once I feel heard, I'm then freed up to do something about it. Um, and one of the things that was very powerful in my journey was a really good friend of mine, Mike. We were running and I was struggling with the cancer, and he spoke to me about Sigmund Freud and this concept of amor fati, which is Latin. Embrace your fate or love your fate, for it is in fact your reality. And it's that accept where you're at, accept it. But you can't accept it until you've voiced it, until you've got out there, until you've been heard. You can't accept it. So that hearing that okay, I've heard, I can accept this thing now. And acceptance is so important, because if you don't accept, you can't deal. If you don't accept, you can't find solutions, because you're finding solutions to something you haven't accepted yet. So I actually have a tattooed on my right shoulder, above the lotus, which is, this beautiful flower rising out of the muck and the mess. And amor fati is there. And that was part of that, entering that first Ironman where, hey, nobody said it would be easy. And if you're fighting this thing because you don't want to accept that you have it. Well, accept that you have it. You can't control the fact that you have it. You've got it. Accept it. And then figure out what to do next. And that was very powerful. So that's another step in that journey. And then together with that personal, figure out to yourself, what are the things that I can control? And how can I get to that other side? And a lot of that is, so you mentioned in my bio the idea of I'm a radical and rebellious optimist. I'm a positivity hater. I'll tell you why in a minute. Um, Essentially, we've been taught and told that positivity is where it's at. Just be positive. Bex, you're going through a tough time. Just be positive. Just be positive. Why can't you just be positive? If you could just be positive, everything would be fine. Why are you so negative? That's how we talk to each other. That's what we've been taught to. And what a load of rubbish. So let's do a little experiment. I get to play a game here, Bex. I want you to feel something for me, right? So are you ready?
Let's do it.
Fantastic. Right. I'm counting down. 3, 2, 1. Feel angry. Feel angry. I can see your
Should I
face. It doesn't even.
demonstrate?
It
Oh,
doesn't look angry. Feel.
wait.
Feel angry. Ah! Does that even sound angry? It's impossible. Impossible.
Yeah.
Why? Feelings come about via triggers, right? I feel angry because the trigger for anger is there. I feel happy because the trigger for happiness is there. I feel positive because the trigger for positivity is there. But when my reality is negative, how can I feel positive? I can't feel that. I'm feeling the opposite. So it becomes what we now term toxic positivity, when we're trying to talk ourselves into feeling positive when our reality is negative. So I'm not a fan of that, obviously, but what I am a fan of is optimism, because optimism isn't a feeling. Optimism is a belief. And optimism is the belief that the future can and will be better, and I have the power to make it so through my actions. In other words, it doesn't matter. Optimism doesn't require my reality to be positive. Optimism doesn't require a perfect set of circumstances. Optimism can exist in a quagmire. Optimism is that lotus that is flowering outside of the mess. That's what optimism is. And I'm a rebellious and radical optimist in that I've never, despite every single thing I've been through, I've never ever lost the optimism that somehow the future can be better. I can somehow get to the other side of this disruption and somehow get to where I want to be. And even now, cancer's come back for the 5th time, and every time it is harder. But either I can go back and say, hold on, you've bloomed. This beautiful flower has bloomed out of the mess 4 times before. Why can it not bloom the 5th time? You have survived it all these times. What would make you believe that you can't this next time? What would make you want to relinquish or give up the optimism that has been your calling card over all this time? So a very big part of that overcoming disruption is looking back, realizing what you have overcome, and having the optimism to believe that you are equipped to get through this next thing, whatever that is, and then figuring out what you need to do to get there. Because those actions, that's the important part. Is how do I put this thing into action? What are the things I can do?
Yes, and you talk big or a lot about the power of the mind and the brain in particular. And I suppose there's some practical steps or things that you maybe practice daily, or you walk yourself through to sharpen your mind, to sharpen your brain such that you gain that strength to face whatever disruption you are facing. Are you able to share that?
Yes.
I know you're quite an expert in this.
So I'm not about expert, but it's definitely something that I have. Although the bio said that, but it's something. I think expert is such a terrible word, because the minute you think you're an expert, you think you can stop learning and you know it all, and what a terrible thing to do. So it's something that I'm learning about all the time, and trying to understand more all the time. And it's part of my journey with the personal coaching of people, and that I get to work with people on their journeys, facilitating journeys, and get to try and understand how this works. And yes, it's all about the mind. And what's quite interesting is that it doesn't actually matter what it is. It's actually, at the end of the day, it boils down to the same thing. It's about the belief. So whether you believe in a God, whether you have faith, whether you believe in God's grace, whether you are religious, whether it's that, or it's the belief in manifestation, or it's the belief in positive outcomes, or it's the belief in energy, or whatever, that belief is the critical part, that faith, that belief in this thing, right? And then the next part of that is say and how you say that. And that could be manifestations, it could be prayer, it could be speaking to a therapist, it could be self-talk, it could be a mantra that you repeat while you're training or doing something hard or whatever. And again, it's what you say, your brain hears you back, and your brain isn't capable of doing anything else when you speak. It cannot think of another thought while you're speaking, which is quite interesting, right? So when you're speaking and saying anything aloud, your brain cannot handle another thought at exactly the same moment in time. So And that's why we talk about having a brain fart, because I'm thinking, I'm speaking, and then all of a sudden I stop, and I stop because now I'm stopped speaking, but I'm thinking about something else, and now I've got to bring my thoughts back to what I was saying. And it's a perfect example of you cannot hold those two things in the same space. And now this is the critical part. Your brain cannot think for itself. Your brain runs on the thoughts that you choose and that you put into your brain, right? But what your brain is the best at doing is building on the thoughts that you put there. In other words, if I say to myself, wow, I'm really hot. I really feel hot. And I say, I really feel hot. My brain's going to look around for all the evidence that exists, the feelings, the temperature, the air, whatever, to try and reinforce the thought that I put in my brain. And it will filter out all the evidence that also might exist to disprove that thought. So I might be sitting in an air conditioning room and I say to myself, yo, it's really hot today. But now, remember, I'm not feeling hot because I'm in an air-conditioned room. But my brain filters out the cold and the air conditioning and filters in that feeling I had when I walked in the door and that rush of hot air and hones in on that. And your brain's doing that all the time. So I use this as a good example. I speak when I'm really suffering in a triathlon. And Paul Wolf, I'll take you back to that time. I was speaking all the time going up that hill. And I'm saying in time to my footsteps, I'm strong. Feeling good, strong, powerful, strong, feeling good, strong, powerful. Pain is temporary, failure is forever. Pain is temporary, failure is forever. I'm repeating these things and I'm saying them aloud because my brain needs to hear them, because my brain needs to look for the evidence to say I'm strong, feeling good, strong, powerful. Now, it could be prayer where I'm speaking what I want. I'm speaking what I desire over somebody else's life, my life. But because I'm speaking it and I'm saying words, same process, right? And that's the power. And yes, it's more. I know it's more than just the brain, and it's in a belief in a God who is all knowing, all omnipotent, and able to make. But I have to believe it, because if I don't believe it, chances are it's never going to happen for me. What is that? What is that belief? So for me, I respect every single person, no matter what they believe and how they believe it, and I will do whatever I can to help them to do more of what they do, to control thoughts and control mind, and to have more of what they want, whatever that is, because that's a simple equation at the end of the day. And
Mm.
so, how do you do that? And what you've heard from me there is, despite your circumstances, despite where you are, despite your reality. You can speak a different reality into existence. Um, and sometimes I might not even believe it at the time, but I know it works. So I might not believe that if I'm saying I'm strong, feeling good, strong, powerful is going to make any difference at all, because I'm in a world of pain and Paul Wolf is catching me and I don't even know how I'm going to get to the end, and my back is in agony. But if I know that that's how it works, and I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it until I start to feel a difference, which gives me the belief.
Now, if Paul is listening or watching, now he knows why you beat him.
Exactly.
Yeah, but now I want to touch. You're a personal coach, and you work with different people. In our conversation earlier, you talked about accountability and discipline. I would like to just pick your mind on that. How does this help us, particularly in disruptive moments, the importance of accountability and that discipline and structure to perhaps follow through the help and whatever tools that somebody is using?
Great. Another really fabulous question, Bex. Thank you. So, for me, it's almost imperative. It is so hard for us to overcome things in our own space. Our minds are as good at being incredibly strong and powerful as they are at being terrible and weak. And it can go either way. And it just takes a weak moment of just feeling down and depressed and just feeling like we beaten and we're losing, for all the good work we've done to be to be sort of thrown away, and now we're back at the starting point again. So for me, it's sure you can do it. And yes, we do have the strength to do it. And sometimes you want to, because you want to be independent and build on that. But was it Nelson Mandela said, if you wanna go something, go alone. If you wanna, no, what is it? Go
You
together.
want to go far?
Go
You
together.
go with people, and if you want to go fast, you go alone. Yeah.
There we go.
I don't
There we
know who
go.
said it. Yeah.
So there we go. So we both know the quote, and it's an amazing quote, and we know the concept. Sorry to the person who said it, and I haven't acknowledged you. So that's really what it is. You want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. It's just making it easier. But disruption is tough. Disruption is hard. Disruption is disgusting, terrible. It's awful. It's horrible. It's everything we don't want. Having said that, though, the beauty about disruption is that it's forced change. And we are so bad at changing things about our lives, so bad at changing things about ourselves. And most of the time, it's because we are comfortable where we are. And sometimes, even though we don't like where we are, we've become comfortable in the discomfort of where we are. I'm uncomfortable, but at least I know my discomfort and I've got used to it, and I'm okay with it. I don't like it, but I'm okay with it. So and change is horrible, so we avoid it. So and maybe if I try and change, I fail, and I don't like failure. So actually, I'm just going to avoid all these things and stay where I am, right? Um, and often and in life coaching, sometimes I get to say this to somebody is, okay, you've spoken for a couple of weeks now about these things you want to change, and we've put things in place, and it just feels like you're struggling to make a start. You're struggling to really put any of these things into practice. So I've got a question for you. Here's the question. At what point will the level of discomfort get high enough that you will actually change something? Because very often, unless we get horribly uncomfortable and the level of discomfort gets high enough, we will not do anything about it. That's curious about human nature, but that's who we are, right? I've seen people who have struggled through lung cancer, who's smokers, and they have an operation and they've been through treatment, and they walk out of the hospital, and the first thing they do is light up a cigarette. And the level of discomfort wasn't high enough. The fear that whatever this thing was is not high enough for them to stop smoking. So you can try whatever you want to. You can't help that person until they get to that point. So that's critical for me. There's disruption, and very hard for us to embrace this thing that has come and disrupted our lives as, oh, this is fantastic. It's going to help me to change. But at the end of the day, that really is the opportunity. And cancer has come with opportunities. Cancer has come with incredible change in my life. Cancer has come with growth. Cancer has come with me, accomplishing things I never thought I was capable of doing, and that's the gift of cancer. It didn't feel like a good gift, still doesn't, but in anything there is that. So how can you make this thing easier for yourself, because it is so damn hard? Get help. And the amazing thing about the getting help is there's the accountability. And sometimes it could just be social media. Hey, everybody, I'm going to run a 10K race in December. I'm going to start training. I want to try and train 3 times a week. I'm going to pop my runs up here, and I'd love you to hold me accountable. If you haven't seen me post for a while, reach out and give me a slap on the wrist, or do something. Just please help me. And in the coaching journey, my job is not to tell you what to do. My job is not to even weigh in with an opinion very often. My job is to help to lead you to those conclusions yourself. My job is to hold you accountable to the things that you're holding yourself accountable to, which is, I'm not going to tell you, a coach doesn't find an athlete and, hey, Bex, I think that you'd be good at running. I want to coach you, and I want to tell you what to do so you can get to this finish line. Never going to work. You've got to say, hey, I think I'm quite good at this thing. I want to get better at it. I've got this big goal that I've got. I need to find somebody who's going to help me to get there. So you are choosing the accountability, not the other way around. My job is to hold you accountable to the things that you hold yourself accountable to. Now, the important thing for my coaching is that it's you can get therapy anywhere. You can go to psychologists, you can go to counseling, you can talk about your life. That's not what I do. What I do is outcomes based. The first session is, what are your expectations? Something has happened in your life. You're at this place for a reason. You clearly don't want to be where you are right now on this day in 12 months' time. You are here for change. What are your expectations want to be? What does it look like? What do you expect out of our time? And I write that down. And the reason for that is because I want to be able to look back. I'm selfish. I also want to get 8 weeks in and look back and say, Bex, look how far you've come. Isn't that amazing? Because then I feel good about myself. Enrichment project. I'm enriching your life. That's what I do. That is my purpose. Enriching people's lives, journeys, organizations. I want to feel like I can enrich your life in one way or another. And most of the time, it's by enriching your thinking, right? So I help in facilitating the enrichment of your thinking. But that expectation is so important because now we can measure progress, and there's the accountability, because accountability always needs to be, um, I must be able to measure it, and there's got to be some sort of score sheet where I know I'm progressing, because that's one of the most powerful ways to get to the other side of disruption, is this feeling of, despite the fact I feel like I'm not moving, I feel like I'm moving through toffee at the moment, um, but that's what it feels like, but actually I am moving. And I saw a client just before I popped on with you, and her third session, and I'm able to say to her, "Wow, I'm so proud of you. You've come so far in such a short space of time." And she said to me, "But I don't feel it." And then I said, "Okay, but hold on, let's go back, because now we can do that." Just this is something you said in the first session. How do you feel? Wow, wow, I can't believe how my thinking towards that thing has changed. Um, so, but she's accountable. And here's the next thing: I'm always going to give you homework. Could be one simple little thing. It could be more complex things. There's the accounts. I'm going to go and, for me, coaching must be practical. You can go and talk to somebody else and you leave the room and, okay, we talked and that's great. I'll see you next week. And next week you get there and you haven't done anything in between except just mull in your own thoughts. And maybe they'll ask you to write a letter to somebody or whatever. And there's a lot of good about that. But that's not me. I'm outcomes based and it's practical. I need to give you practical things to do because I know that that practical stuff makes it is incredibly empowering in helping you to overcome this disruption. I need to change your thinking so that you can focus on actions and behavioral changes. Because if you can do that, you'll get to the other side of disruption, whatever it is. That's where your locus of control is. And that's where I focus on those sessions. And that's the accountability.
So, Richard, you've turned your story into, of course, message of hope for many. I know it's far-reaching that you can even know yourself. I know people give you feedback, but perhaps it's broader than what you think. And as we coming to a close, I have one or two more questions to ask. What would you tell someone who is on the cliff? They have faced disruption. You know that moment, that very first moment when, boom, it's the divorce, it's cancer, it's death, whatever it is, disruption, and they're on the cliff about to jump. What would you tell this person?
Sure. So that is a really tough one because in that reality of somebody who is literally, I don't want to be here anymore, and I want to end my life. Um, and fortunately, in my coaching journey, I've had to deal with that only twice. Um, it is so hard. Because there's very little that you can say in that moment that is going to make an actual tangible difference to somebody who's already made that decision. And trying to tell them what to do isn't helpful either. Telling them that there's meaning and it will get better. And what would you do if somebody told you these things? And so for me, again, the coaching journey, what I've learned is it's a journey of self-discovery where I just get to be the facilitator. Um, and it's starting to ask the questions, and it's questions that enables somebody perhaps to look at things a little bit differently. Um, can I ask you about things that you perhaps have already overcome in your life? What have you overcome in your journey to get here? And I know that this next thing feels like it's too big. It's too big. But tell me about things that you have already. I know there's a story there. Um, what would need to change in order for you to feel like somehow there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel? What would that thing be? Um, Again, I can't tell you what I think that thing's going to be or what it should be. I need you to take a step back and start to look at things a little differently and see things a little bit differently. And I learned that in all my years of training people, and that's the sales training. I was a national training manager for Pam Golding Properties for 8 years. And I can tell you what to do. I can tell you how to sell houses. I can tell you how to negotiate. I can tell you what best practice is. I can tell you how to position yourself in the marketplace. But years and years of telling people to do that, I realize there's very little efficacy. Why? Because they will tell you all the reasons why they can't, and they'll tell you why it doesn't work in their area, and they'll come up with all the reasons why it's not going to work. And the same thing for somebody jumping on a cliff. I have to lead you there. You have to discover it for yourself. And only in those moments can you find your power. So
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's helpful because there certainly isn't a one size fits all, but it's starting to ask those questions and framing this person's thoughts, helping them to frame their thoughts a little differently. And that obviously then gives them hope. But here's the thing about hope. And there's a clip from the when I was the story of Iron Man, that first cancer Iron Man on Supersport, and I play it in some of my talks. Um, and I say that I hate hope. I hate hope because there's no power behind those words. Um, and what's quite interesting is so much of the journey is about hope, and I always need to explain it because people look at me like, "What? What do you mean you hate hope? You are the beacon of hope." And what I say is this: I sit down on the stage and I say, imagine if here I am, I've got this cancer diagnosis, I've been told I've got 6 months to live, and I just sit down. I sit down on the bed, I sit down on the floor, and just sit down, I do nothing. And people say to me, "What are you doing?" And I say, "I'm hoping." They say, "Sorry? Are you not gonna do anything?" "No, I'm gonna hope." Isn't that how it works? I just have to hope. In fact, if I could just hope, then I don't have to have an operation, I don't have to go through radiation, I don't have to go through treatment, I can just hope. And so often we look at things like that, and we think, well, it's enough to hope. And yes, part of grace is the belief in and the hope and the faith that we have. But it doesn't matter what you believe, it doesn't matter who your God is. If you aren't prepared to do what you need to do to get to where you want to go, then hope is useless. Hope is what you have and what you believe during the journey whilst you're doing everything you possibly can. And at that moment where you've done everything you possibly can, well, that's when you most deserve hope because you've done that all. Hope is something that you give other people by being an example, by donating to charity, by doing things for people who are less than, for coach in the coaching journey. It's something that you facilitate in others. But I it doesn't matter how much hope you have that life is going to be better after your precipice moment. Unless you do the things you need to do to effect that change, nothing is going to change. So my favorite quote in life is 5 words, 5 of the most powerful words. Nothing changes if nothing changes. What are you going to change? Because this thing has entered your life, this disruption has happened, and if you don't do anything, if you don't think anything different, if you don't change anything, nothing is going to change. And nobody can do that thing for you. And I know it might be different if you follow Christian faith, but it's a different kind of savior and saving. Essentially, that concept of nobody is coming to save you is 100% correct. People can give you hope. You can have hope in prayer and in your Lord and Savior and being saved and life, eternal life. But in this moment, nobody is coming to save you. Is not nothing's going to miraculously turn this thing around. Um, you know, and at that moment in time, how can I save myself? What do I need to do? Who do I need to speak to? How can I reach out? Um, that's that's what can I control?
Interesting perspective there. I mean, faith is unseen, things we cannot touch, tangible. So you tap into that, and of course, I like the way you frame hope in the sense of giving and as example and so forth. But I liked also what you touched on. Um, Looking at what you have achieved when somebody's on the cliff and they feel it's doom and gloom, but somehow in their journey they've achieved something, they've overcome something, and that's so relatable to me. One time I remember, while deep in training, we had to do 100K cycle into Jeffries. You go down
Yes,
that
yes.
route to
On
Woodridge, and
starters.
yes, Van Stadens. And it was tough. It was tough for me. Cycling is my weakest link. So you can imagine going through those hills. By the time we got to Jeffries, I had had enough. I called an Uber and drove back to PE while they rode back. I wrote a long message to my coach. My coach is Aspire team, Bruce and Tracy. Yes. I wrote him a long message saying how I'm quitting all this thing. Anyway, I belong to the sidelines and blah, blah, blah. What was profound in his response was, he says, well, it's good, but before you quit, let me show you how far you've come. He pulled out my stats of how I started and how I had improved over the years. And he said, no, I just want you to quit knowing that you have done very well. And of course, that worked on my psychology. Was that I can't have come this far to
Yes.
throw all this away. And
Yeah.
I suppose it would be the same messaging to somebody who is feeling disrupted and overwhelmed that the world is coming to an end, but the steps they've taken coming to this point forward. Yeah, so I thought that was quite relatable.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on your love for bonsai. What lessons can we learn from that?
Oh man, there's so many. So I'm going to
I
go
am
back
I'm
one.
saying this I'm saying this so maybe I can rescue my bonsai.
Okay, it deserves to be rescued. I just want to go back one step, right? Often it's to say, Bex, can you remember how it felt when you took your first cycle? Just remember, and you were worried about not being able to uncleat and falling off your bike, and am I going to make the distance? And I'm sores and all those. Just remember how that felt.
They call me
Just
the bush hugger because I went straight to the bush.
you see. Oh my
Yes,
goodness, that
at
is funny.
grassroots.
Oh no, shame, man. I hope it was a soft landing. Now imagine just how it felt when you got off your bike at Jeffries. Just think of everything you got through, how far it was, how many hills. Just go back to that first one and tell me again how you're going to quit. And one last thing about somebody who's at that place is very often to reward their strength. Because I don't know if you can relate, but I don't have the strength to end my life. I don't have the strength to decide I'm just going to stop everything and I'm just going to jump off Van Staden's bridge or do whatever. I actually don't have that. And then I think, well, I'm too weak to do that. I'm too weak to. It's actually literally saying to somebody, can I help you to understand how strong you have to be to have got to this point where you have the resolve and you're prepared to do this thing, and that mental strength. Can you imagine how much more you are actually capable of? That isn't weakness. You're not standing here in weakness of giving up, and not at all. Again, I think if I could land one point, reframe. We can always look at things different, and Bruce did exactly that thing with you. He said, Bex, reframe. Just look at it differently. And what he did with you is exactly what I said earlier, is go back to you're a magnificent survivor of every single thing that you've ever survived in your life. Look what you are capable of. What on earth would make you not be optimistic about where you're going? And so bonsai, let me flow from that. And so bonsai into my life when I was going through a tough time when I was a kid, and we lived in Cape Town, and I was going to Tiger Hospital because I was an angry kid, and I was really struggling at school, and I was being bullied, and we landed up at Kirstenbosch Gardens, and there was a bonsai exhibition, and I looked at these trees, I fell in love, and the smell, even I can still remember. There was this forest, this group of trees, and I asked my parents for some money, and I think they thought it was for a Coke or something, and I went, there was a sales table, and I bought this little tree, and they were quite like, wow, surprised. It was quite interesting as my therapist at that time at Tygerberg gave me two trees, and they were in the garden, and life changed, but it became this thing that was growing, this thing that represented growth and life, but I think also I had control over it. It was reliant on me to water it and to put it in the right place, and its faith, its existence depended on me, right? And that was quite cool. And part of therapy and part of people who reaching its end is to give that person responsibility of somebody else, something else, a pet, as something. That's why that is a houseplant. That's why that's so important, right? Because you're giving them responsibility. And so that was big. And we moved, and they died, or we left them in Cape Town. But I was 21, and a girlfriend gave me one, and I just the bug bit. But the incredible thing about bonsai is it's like exercising, same thing, and it's like any goal in your life. There are certain things that you have to do every single day. And if you don't do those things, you will not get to the finish line, and nothing will change in your life. If I miss watering a tree one day and this little pot with hardly any soil in it is sitting in full sun, my tree is dead. In other words, I have the responsibility of doing this one little thing every single day. If that's all I do, just water this thing, it will survive. It might not thrive because I'm not feeding it. I might not be pruning it, it might grow out of shape or whatever, but it will survive. And I can't see the impact of that little thing of this watering. It doesn't grow in a day. And wow, look at that! Look what watering did. But all those little things, compound interest, it all adds up. All adds up. And it's also the concept of life is long. We're told so often, life is so short. Life is so short. You should live for today. Live for today. It's so short. Sure, agreed. But life is also long. Nothing lasts forever. Happiness doesn't last forever. Sadness doesn't last forever. Nothing lasts forever. And if you think of what you can achieve over a length of time, despite where you are right now, that is incredible. So I can start a seed, and in 10 years' time, I can have something magnificent in a bonsai. I had to start somewhere. And if I'm doing the right things over and over, if I'm improving my skills and able to look after this thing, if I can create something over time that is unbelievably extraordinary because life is long. I need to believe in that. And that's so true of life. Is despite wherever you are right now, it's in winter. This thing doesn't have leaves. It's a deciduous tree, has no leaves. It's not growing. I'm not even watering it or doing nothing. Just sitting, looking at this thing that isn't changing. But the season will change. And when the season changes, there'll be green leaves. And then they'll fall off and drop. And I cut it back. And that pruning is so important, because if I don't prune it, I don't create this illusion of age. I just let this thing grow, and it just looks like this young stick in a pot with this long stuff. And that pruning is what life does to us. And when we are pruned, we're like, this is sore. I don't like being pruned. This isn't nice. I feel like I'm going backwards. No, you're going backwards to go forwards. This concept of, let's not bounce back. Let's bounce forward. What's the point in going through what you go through to go back? No, you go through what you go through in order to go forward. It's when every time I touch a tree, it must be because I'm creating something better. I'm helping it to move into a better future. How magnificent is bonsai? If you think of all those concepts, it's pretty much, it's everything we've chatted about. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I thought it is important we sum it up around that, because I look at this little tree, it's gorgeous, and but just the little steps, the effort required, as small as it may be, it creates life. It rejuvenates. So I'm really thankful that we've taken this time, Richard.
So well, and sorry, this is super, super important. Bonsai, and I don't know if this is the issue with yours, but bonsai is all about location, right? The position. And the two things that are critical: is the tree in the right position so it can grow, thrive, flourish? And is it receiving the right care and water? Water and sun are the two most important things. Same for us. So we will not thrive if we are in the wrong position. We will not thrive if we are surrounded by people that overshadow us and we're not getting enough light. We will not thrive if we're not getting watered. We will not thrive if we are indoors all the time. Bonsai shouldn't be indoors. That location is so important. And then, are you getting what you need to grow? Again, so important. And before you end off, I just want to say, sorry, I just realized there's a pile here. I'm signing them for a client. As a little gift to say thank you so much for having me, I am going to send you, you're going to give me your address. I'm going to sign a copy, and I'm going to send you the Power of Purpose to say thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. Thank you.
Richard, you're so kind. Thank you. Thank you. I will hopefully also see you in person soon. But just to conclude our discussion, and I like your last sentence, how do we thrive amidst turbulence? I've been reading about this recently, and quite interesting that it features today. How do we thrive amid turbulence? So your story, your life journey, it's not just a story. It's your life journey has really shown us that distractions are inevitable. Change is inevitable. But
Yep.
how do we survive in this disruption? How do we continue to thrive and move just beyond survival? Because when I look at you, you're not just surviving. You're not just a survivor. You have found purpose in life. You have gone beyond your life, just in your circle, your family, to share this with the world. And I must say thank you so much. On behalf of myself, my family, and any other person that has encountered your work and has not told you thank you, I just want to say thank you. But most important, thank you for honoring this podcast. This episode will be aired in October, a month where we also have cancer awareness. I know many people have encountered cancer. I personally, my sister-in-law has just gone through that as well. My good friends around me as well. But I just also want to encourage you, as you go through this fifth disruption in your life, know that we are standing with you. We are praying for you, and you will overcome, because you've got the power and the mind and the tools and everything to overcome. So I look forward to I think I commented in your post and saying it's another chapter. Let's write it, right? Let's write
Absolutely.
this chapter. And when the book is complete, we'll be able to really have a beautiful book of what we'd call Richard Wright, as a whole. So thank you so much, Richard.
You are an absolutely amazing and lovely human being, and thank you so much for all your kind words and for having me. And I've absolutely loved this. I've loved this chat. What you're doing is amazing, and I just hope that somebody listening took something from it that made a difference. And thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.